Isaac Newton, a name synonymous with genius, with the laws that govern the universe. But behind the apples, the equations, and the books, there was a man who was dark, obsessive, and often dangerous. These are the 10 strangest, darkest, and most unexpected facts about Isaac Newton. Let's begin the countdown. Number 10. The child who was not meant to live. Isaac Newton was born in 1643. Premature, so small and fragile that his relatives were certain he would not survive. His mother later said the baby could fit inside a mug. He was born without a father during the English Civil War, at a time when premature infants rarely lived. And yet, this child no one expected to grow up would go on to write the laws that govern the universe. Number 9. The book that almost never saw the light. Principia Mathematica is considered the most important scientific book of all time, and at the same time, one of the most difficult books ever written. But there is something even stranger. Principia would never have been published if Newton had not been forced to do so. He had written most of the work, but feared criticism and refused to release it. It took the persistence of Edmund Halley, yes, the comet, to change his mind. Halley not only encouraged him, he paid for the publication himself, because the Royal Society had run out of money. They had spent it on a failed book about fish. Number 8. The discovery he kept locked away. Newton had already discovered calculus, but he kept it locked inside his drawers. By the mid-1660s, he had developed its core ideas, but feared criticism and public confrontation. So he published almost nothing. Years later, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz independently published his own version of calculus with a clean and elegant symbolic notation. What followed was one of the most poisonous scientific disputes in history. Newton, using his authority within the Royal Society, accused Leibniz of plagiarism. In reality, both men had arrived at the same idea independently, but the conflict divided European science for decades. Number 7. A life without love. Isaac Newton never married, and as far as we know, he never had a romantic relationship of any kind. There are no love letters, no scandals, no references to partners. Biographers agree that Newton lived almost entirely for his thoughts. He was deeply introverted, socially awkward, and often suspicious of others. His relationships were limited, frequently tense, and almost never emotionally close. For Newton, loneliness was not a lack. It was a choice. His mind was his only refuge. Number 6. The apple that never hit his head. The famous apple never fell on Newton's head, but it struck him directly in the mind. This is not a children's tale. Newton really did observe an apple falling while sitting in his garden. What shook him was not the fall itself, but its direction. Why did the apple fall straight down, and not sideways or upward? Why does the same force that pulls the apple not pull the moon out of the sky? From this seemingly simple question was born the idea that the same force governs both everyday objects and celestial bodies. A humble piece of fruit became the spark for one of the most revolutionary laws in the history of science. Number 5. The telescope that changed the sky. In the 17th century, lens-based telescopes produced blurry images filled with colored distortions. Newton realized the problem was not poor craftsmanship, it was the nature of light itself. Instead of fixing the lenses, he threw them out. He used a mirror instead of a lens and built the first successful reflecting telescope. Small in size, but revolutionary in impact, it proved that color was not a flaw of glass, but a property of light. With one bold move, Newton solved a technical dead end that had lasted for decades and opened the path to all modern large telescopes. Number 4. The scientist who searched for God. Newton spent more time chasing the secrets of God than writing physics. He wrote millions of words on alchemy and theology, more than he ever wrote on science. He experimented with metals, substances, and symbols, searching for the philosopher's stone. At the same time, he obsessively studied the Bible, not as faith, but as code. He believed sacred texts contained mathematical patterns and timelines that could reveal God's plan for the universe and for history. For Newton, science was not the enemy of religion. It was the tool to decode the divine. And yet, he kept all these writings hidden. He knew that if they were revealed, they would destroy his reputation as a cold, rational scientist. Number 3. The politician who never spoke. Isaac Newton also served as a member of Parliament. But politics may have been the only field where his genius left no trace. He was elected twice to the English Parliament as a representative of Cambridge University. He remained almost completely silent. In the official records, only one intervention by Newton is preserved. It had nothing to do with laws, taxes, or war. He simply said, "Please, close the window." Number 2. The man who sent another to the gallows. At one point in his life, Isaac Newton was appointed Master of the Royal Mint. He was responsible for the money of the entire nation. England's currency was collapsing under counterfeiting, and the economy was under threat. Newton did not treat the position as an honorary role. He treated it as a mission. Instead of staying behind a desk, he descended into London's underworld. He moved through taverns, prisons, and dark alleys, interrogating suspects and recruiting informants. The most dangerous of them all was named William Challoner, a brilliant counterfeiter, ruthless, and bold enough to publicly accuse the mint itself. Newton tracked him with obsessive precision. He gathered testimonies, constructed depositions, and built a case of almost laboratory-level perfection. When the trial began, Challoner was not merely facing the crown. He was facing Newton's mind. In 1699, William Challoner was convicted of high treason, and he was hanged. Number 1. The genius who paid the price. Newton turned his own body into an experimental subject. To understand how vision works, he pressed on his eyeballs until he saw rings of light. He inserted needles between the eye and the bone, deliberately inducing pain and hallucinations. At the same time, he sank deeper into alchemy, working with toxic substances in enclosed spaces. He was likely exposed to mercury. In his 50s, he suffered a psychological collapse. He endured insomnia, paranoia, and violent mood swings. Newton's genius did not simply elevate him, it pushed him dangerously close to the limits of body and mind. Isaac Newton was not only the man who explained how the universe moves, he was a man driven by obsession, darkness, and extreme devotion. Perhaps that is why he saw farther than anyone else. Which fact surprised you the most? This was your brain snack for today. Subscribe, and we'll see you next time.